There was a time when Nora believed love meant perfection. Not the quiet, enduring kind of perfection that grows with time, but the kind she had seen in glossy pictures and admired from afar. To her, a perfect marriage meant being admired, praised, envied, even feared. But most of all, it meant having someone who made her look good. And for a while, she believed she had it. Nora was beautiful, sharp, and full of ambition, not the ambition to build a business or change the world, but to curate a life that looked flawless from the outside. Her husband, Leo, was kind and calm, not the most stylish, nor the fittest man at the table, but someone who listened when she spoke and never raised his voice, even when he disagreed. But for Nora, that wasn't enough. One evening, as they prepared for a colleague's anniversary party, Nora glanced at Leo, who had just emerged from the bedroom dressed in his usual navy shirt and slacks. She stopped him with a sigh. "What are you wearing?" Leo looked down. "My usual. You said casual formal, right?" She narrowed her eyes. "How many times have I told you not to wear that color? It doesn't suit you, and it makes you look bigger." Leo chuckled softly. "I think I look fine." "No," she replied coldly. "You don't. Your stomach's poking out. Button up properly, and for heaven's sake, suck it in. I don't want a repeat of last month's disaster." Leo paused. "You mean Anna's anniversary?" "Yes," she snapped. "Do you remember how people looked at us? How mismatched we were? That was humiliating." His eyes softened, but his voice remained firm. "Your friends were giving you strange looks because they judge you for what you wear, not who you are." Nora turned her back. "They were judging me for who I married." Leo exhaled. "We're happy, Nora. Isn't that what matters?" "To me," she replied, "what matters is that we look like the best couple in the room." And so they went. Leo, uncomfortable in his tightened shirt, and Nora, glowing in a dress designed to dazzle, made their entrance. Nora's smile was practiced, perfect, polished. Leo's was strained. That night, as they returned home, the silence between them was louder than the music from the party. Nora's high heels clicked against the floor as she walked into the bedroom first. "You didn't even try tonight," she muttered. Leo followed, tired. "I talked to your friends, I smiled, I stayed beside you. They were laughing, Leo, because of you, because of how you looked, your belly, your posture, everything." He stared at her, as if seeing her for the first time in years. "You're really ashamed of me, aren't you?" Nora crossed her arms. "I'm ashamed that you don't even care. You've let yourself go. People like us, we don't get to be average." "I'm not average," he said quietly. "I'm me." But Nora wasn't listening. She was too busy thinking about how her friend's husband looked in his tailored suit, fit, polished, admired, and how Leo had looked beside him, simple, tired, and in her eyes, embarrassing. The next morning, she handed him a schedule. "What's this?" Leo asked. "Your new routine," she said. "From now on, you're walking to the gym, not driving, and no more junk food. Water with lemon in the morning, light dinner, no lunch. You'll thank me later." Leo stared at the paper. "This isn't health. This is punishment." "It's discipline," she corrected. "And you'll stick to it for 2 months. My friend Clara is visiting from Canada. Her husband looks like a movie star, and I want you to at least not make me look bad. You're not doing this for me, Leo said. You're doing this so you can show me off like a prize. Nora didn't deny it. Each day that followed was another push, another set of rules, another comparison. Nora compared Leo's weight, his clothes, his way of walking, his laugh, even his silence to other men. She scrolled through social media and sighed loudly. See, look how perfect Olivia and her husband look. That's what people respect. Leo no longer responded. He woke early, ran when she told him to, ate what she gave him, and said little. It wasn't weakness, it was exhaustion. And then came the mall. Nora dragged him from store to store, choosing clothes he didn't like in colors he'd never wear. She held up matching outfits. We'll wear the same tones, you and I. It'll be perfect. Perfect for who? He asked. For everyone, she replied. She didn't see the sadness in his eyes. As he stepped outside to take a work call, Nora ran into an old college friend, Amelia. They hugged, exchanged pleasantries, and of course, the question came, where's your husband? The one you rejected all those guys for? He just stepped out to take a call. Nora smiled, frozen. You know, work emergencies. Amelia glanced around politely. We should catch up soon. Bring him over. Nora nodded, but inside, her stomach turned. She didn't want Amelia to see Leo, not the Leo she had turned into. Or maybe, not the Leo she had always refused to accept. When Leo returned, she whispered coldly, Thank God you came late. He looked at her. I'm your husband. How can you say something like that? Nora looked away. I can't help it. Appearances matter, and you don't fit. Leo didn't speak again. They drove home in silence. Later that night, she served him his breakfast for the next morning. Warm lemon water. No food. This is for your own good, she insisted. But Leo said nothing. He just looked at her, and in that look was the ache of a man being sculpted by someone who never loved him as he was. The next morning, she pushed him to increase the speed on the treadmill. Faster, she said. I'll fall, he warned. You won't. And he did. The sound of him hitting the floor was sharp, terrifying. He cried out. She ran to him, panic overtaking pride. My leg, he groaned. I can't move it. She called for help, for an ambulance, for forgiveness. But something had already broken. At the hospital, the silence was no longer heavy. It was final. Leo sat up in the bed, pain etched into his face, but his voice steady. Nora, he said, I'm done. Her eyes widened. What? I can't do this anymore. I can't live with someone who loves only what I look like, who reshapes me every day like I'm a project, not a person. Please, I didn't know, she began. You knew, he said, but you didn't care. You cared about being admired, not about who I am. I've called my father. He's coming. You'll get the papers tomorrow. Nora cried, she begged. Please, one more chance, I'll change. I've already forgiven you, Leo said quietly, but I won't stay. And so she watched him leave. The man who had once stood by her through every silence, every storm, now walked away on crutches, broken physically, but healing in spirit. She sat alone, the mirror beside her reflecting the truth she never wanted to see. It was never about his weight. It was about her emptiness. And now it was too late. The apartment felt colder without him. Not because the temperature had changed, but because something vital was missing: his presence, his steady energy, the quiet kindness that had once filled every corner. Nora wandered the rooms, unable to settle. The air was still, almost punishing, and the silence, it wasn't peaceful. It screamed. Leo was gone, not on a trip, not at work gone, the kind of absence that leaves an echo behind, a soft ache in every sound that reminds you of what you've lost. Nora sat on the couch, knees pulled to her chest. For the first time, there were no social events to plan, no outfits to coordinate, no husband to mold into the image she'd spent years constructing. For the first time, she wasn't preparing to impress anyone. She was simply there, alone. The television played, but she didn't watch. The phone buzzed, but she didn't check. What was the point of small talk, jokes, or updates when the one person who mattered had walked away? She replayed their last conversation over and over. The pain in his eyes, the weight in his voice, his final words. "I've already forgiven you, but I won't stay." She thought forgiveness meant restoration, but sometimes forgiveness is letting go. Her father came the next morning. He didn't say much, just hugged her and looked into her eyes like he was searching for the daughter he once knew. She didn't cry, not in front of him. She had cried through the night until her eyes stung and her voice was hoarse. He handed her the papers. She didn't open them, just placed them on the table and nodded. There was no fight left in her. In the days that followed, Nora avoided mirrors. It was strange. She had once lived for her reflection, adjusting angles and lighting until she looked just right. Now, she couldn't bear to see her own face, not because of wrinkles or makeup, but because of the woman staring back, a woman who had built her identity on being admired and ended up alone. She took a leave from work, ignored calls from friends, and declined every invitation. But in the stillness, something unexpected happened. She began to hear herself, not the curated version, the real voice, the one she had silenced for years in pursuit of praise. And it hurt. She remembered the first time Leo had cooked for her, how he had burned the toast but laughed about it, how she had rolled her eyes and called him clumsy, not realizing she had just dismissed a small act of love. She remembered how he used to send her pictures from work, memes, articles, funny signs, little ways of saying, "I'm thinking of you," and how she had told him to stop wasting time. Memory after memory returned, not like gentle waves, but like waves with weight, each one crashing into her heart. Eventually, she ventured out, not to shop, not to meet anyone, just to walk. She wore no makeup, her hair tied back loosely, clothes plain and quiet. For once, she wasn't dressing to be seen, she was just trying to feel again. And as she walked, she saw things she had missed for years. A child helping her grandmother cross the street, A couple sharing a sandwich on a bench, laughing at something silly. An old man reading a book aloud to his dog. Moments, real ones. She sat at a small cafe near the park, sipping tea alone, and thought about the life she had created. Not the life she showed the world, the one she had built behind smiles and social posts, but the actual one, the one Leo had tried to be part of, the one she had closed off with criticism and control, and it broke her. When she returned home, she found a box at the door. No return address. She opened it slowly. Inside was a framed photo, their wedding day, but not the posed shot from the album. This one was candid. Leo was laughing, genuinely, eyes crinkled, head tilted. And she was looking at him, not at the camera, with wonder in her eyes. She had forgotten that look. Beneath the frame, a note. I hope one day you'll remember this version of us. Before the mirrors, before the pressure. Just us. There was no signature, but she didn't need one. She placed the frame on the table and sat beside it. The next day, she began to write. Not to anyone else. Not for a blog or a post. Just to herself. She wrote about the weight of expectations, about the noise of comparison, about the way love can be twisted into performance if we're not careful, and about the quiet grief of waking up too late. She wrote until her hand ached and her tears blurred the ink. In time, she started volunteering at a local wellness center, not as a coach or speaker, but simply as a listener. She sat with women going through breakups, body image struggles, self-worth crises. She didn't offer advice. She just listened. And in their stories, she heard echoes of her own. One woman, recently divorced, asked her, "How do you let go of someone you pushed away?" Nora smiled gently. "You don't, not at first. You let go of the version of yourself who didn't know how to hold on. And you rebuild, slowly, gently, differently." That night, she placed a journal on her nightstand with a single sentence on the first page. I want to become someone I would have stayed with, not for Leo, not for anyone else, for herself. As the weeks turned to months, Nora didn't magically transform. She still caught herself comparing, still wrestled with guilt and regret. But now she caught herself. She named the feeling, and instead of running from it, she sat with it. One morning, while walking in the park, she saw Leo. He looked healthy, peaceful. He saw her too. They didn't run to each other. There were no dramatic scenes, just a nod, a shared silence, a small smile. And in that moment, they both knew healing was happening. Separately, yes, but fully. Healing doesn't arrive with fanfare. It doesn't knock on your door and announce its presence. It seeps in slowly, like sunlight through a crack in the curtains after a long night. And that was how Nora began to feel again. Little by little, not through grand changes, but through the quiet courage of choosing differently. The woman who once obsessed over how others perceived her was now learning to see herself fully. Not just her reflection, but her reactions, her triggers, her wounds, and most of all her strength. She started keeping a gratitude list. At first, it felt forced. Warm tea, cool air after rain, eyes that finally see truth. But over time, those words became her anchor. They reminded her that joy didn't have to be big. It just had to be honest. Nora didn't rush to find someone new. That wasn't her story now. This chapter wasn't about love found in another. It was about rediscovering herself, about learning to walk through the world not as a performance, but as a presence. She took long walks without her phone, sat in silence, and watched people, not to judge or compare, but to understand. For the first time, she truly noticed people's eyes, the way tiredness lingered in their posture, the way laughter softened their edges. She stopped interrupting conversations to make herself the center. She started asking, "How are you really?" and stayed for the answer. One afternoon, while helping organize a community event at the wellness center, a woman named Elise approached her. "You're the one who volunteers here, right? You always listen." Nora smiled. "I try. I heard you've been through a lot," Elise continued. "I'm sorry if this is too direct, but how do you forgive yourself?" That question landed heavy. Nora paused. "I think you begin by telling the truth, not the one you share with others, the one you whisper to yourself at night when no one else is around. And you sit with that truth without trying to explain it away. Forgiveness starts when you stop lying to your own soul." Elise nodded, tears in her eyes. "That's the hardest part." "It is," Nora whispered, "but it's also the most freeing." That night, Nora sat on her balcony under a sky full of stars, no filters, no edits, just the raw, expansive dark. She closed her eyes and whispered, "I forgive you," and she meant it. Not because she had done everything right, not because she had magically become the person Leo needed, but because she was no longer the woman who had once hurt others in the name of perfection. She was someone else now, someone growing, someone whole. Weeks later, she received a letter. It was from Leo. No return address, just handwriting she recognized instantly. Inside was a simple message. "I saw you today, walking by the lake. You looked peaceful. I just wanted you to know I see you now. Not as my wife, not as a memory, as someone I respect deeply. Thank you for the love we once had. And thank you for becoming the kind of person who will never forget what it cost. I wish you joy. Always. Leo." Nora didn't cry. She smiled. That was closure. Not dramatic, not bitter, just human. She placed the letter beside the wedding photo she had kept, not out of grief, but gratitude. It was no longer a reminder of what was lost, but of what was learned. From then on, her days were different. She planted herbs on her balcony. She cooked for herself, not to impress, but to nourish. She danced in her living room on quiet evenings. She reread books she had once pretended to enjoy and discovered she actually loved them. And she began speaking at the wellness center, not to talk about weight or relationships or fashion, but about freedom, the truest kind of freedom, she said in one talk, is when you stop asking others for permission to feel worthy. The room went silent. Women nodded. Some wiped tears. That was the moment Nora knew. Her pain had not been in vain. It had become her purpose. A year later, she stood by the lake where she had once seen Leo. This time, she came alone not to chase closure, but to celebrate growth. She looked at her reflection in the water. No makeup, no jewelry, just a soft, open face. And for the first time, she whispered not criticism, not judgment, but praise. You made it, not to perfection, but to peace.